One thing that's great, though, Brock Purdy has a full offseason ahead of him, healthy.
Yep.
And you see that he's working on his mechanics. I talked to Quincy Avery, the quarterback coach, asked him what builds arm strength, and he basically said it's mechanics is what it is. And
Yeah.
Brock said the two things he's working on is his arm strength and his mobility. Mobility was interesting because I think he's pretty damn mobile already, but it seems like those are the two things he wanted to focus on: being more mobile, which is great because he's already pretty damn mobile, and then improving his arm talent with a full healthy season, off season to work on those things. You see he's in Florida working with who's the first pick of the draft this year?
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams. He was working with Caleb Williams in Florida, working on his mechanics and trying to improve that velocity. So, Brock Purdy had a hell of a season last year, and it makes me wonder, what is he capable of doing with a full healthy offseason? What are your expectations for Brock Purdy coming into the season now that he does have this full offseason to work on those things?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this type of conversation. And when you look at the work that Purdy has put in, I know that you've seen the offseason photos as far as the arm bulk and just the quads and the overall shape that he's in. He looks already a lot bigger than he did last year. And I think that that's also going to help him improve in some areas, maybe be more of a running threat, improve on that arm strength. You never want to go too heavy as far as the weightlifting goes on the arm, because sometimes that can take away from some of the touch and accuracy. But like Louis Riddick said it during the NFL draft, and this was after, obviously, we saw all the photos of what Brock Purdy looked like during these offseason workouts. But he said, Brock Purdy is putting in that work. And the league better take notice of what he's been able to do, because physically he's taken that next step. And this is what happens with all professional athletes. Like, you get into the NFL, you understand that the physicality and the speed is a little bit different. You're overwhelmed by trying to master the playbook, and you're kind of just trying to keep your head above water with everything that the pro game throws your way. And then as you play a couple of years, that's when you start to take your diet a little bit more seriously, your nutrition. This is true for all of us as we get a little bit older. We start to think about things in a different sense as we mature, just mentally and inside our head, as you start to think a little bit more about longevity. So this happens with professional athletes too. And you made a good point. Like, Brock Purdy, for the first time in his pro career, as he's entering year 3, has a full offseason to master his game and work on his deficiencies and try to streamline his development and find some of the flaws in his game that he can work on a little bit. He's going to have an opportunity to work with some of the weapons on this 49ers roster that he couldn't last year. But you also think about the NFL draft back in 2021 or 2022 when Purdy was Mr. Relevant, right? Like, you get drafted in April, and then you have rookie minicamp and OTAs, and then you're not around the team until training camp after that. And Purdy, when he was a rookie, was a third stringer behind Trey Lance, behind Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's not like he was able to get a lot of reps. Within those reps, he impressed the coaching staff, and he impressed the players on the roster who were saying, man, I think there's something to Brock Purdy. And when he played in the preseason, I know you, myself, others were like, there's something to Purdy's game that just is a little bit different. And it's some of the elements to his game that we discussed a little bit earlier: the timing, the accuracy, the anticipation. How did this guy go in the 7th round? And a part of the reason why he was able to make that quick transition was all of the experience that he got at the college level. He looked like a seasoned player, which allowed him to be ready for that stage. And you also made the point earlier of the Niners prioritizing a lot of players who are 5th-year seniors and 6th-year seniors who have played a lot of football. And I think when you play a lot of football, you don't have that second guessing nature and that hesitation, just trying to rely also on your athletic ability. You have those instincts. You can make decisions in a blank. You can process when things are firing because you've been in that position. You've played a lot of football. So, Purdy's ability to play a lot of football at Iowa State helped him year 1. But then when talking about the experience and him now having this full off season, last year he didn't have that. We didn't know if he was going to be ready for week 1. shoot, not only is he ready for week one, he's ready for day one of training camp, but he didn't have that offseason to work on his body, work on his game, because he's rehabbing his elbow. And we saw that nasty scar, and he's not able to go somewhere with his wide receivers like we see these quarterbacks do and put in that work and get in the lab in the offseason because he's having to rehab. So now this offseason, he's able to do that. He's able to work on his body. He's able to continue to master the playbook. The 49ers, I also saw something very interesting, ran the second least 3+ wide receiver sets last year in the NFL. Second least, right? They draft Ricky Pearsall, and if they run it back with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, I think there's going to be a change to this offense. And now Kyle Shanahan's probably cooking up some plays. He's relaying that information to Brock Purdy. He's able to further hone in on that as well. So all of these things I think are really important as far as Purdy's development goes. And I know some people have brought up the conversation, Purdy was so good in 2023. Is the league going to catch up to him? And is he going to regress? That's totally possible. But at the NFL level, you're paying Kyle Shanahan top head coaching money, and you're paying these players these salaries because when the league adjusts, you have to counter adjust. And I can make the argument just as easily as people could say, well, the league can catch up to Purdy. Well, the league also has to catch up to the evolving nature of this 49ers offense. And have we seen a change in philosophy for this Niners offense where they're adding a Ricky Pearsall, they're adding a Jacob Cowing, and Isaac Guerrero. They're getting a little bit faster. And then on top of that, can Purdy's continued development lead to him making improvements on some of the flaws? And then the league has to catch up to that as well.
Yeah, I think actually Brock Purdy could be better, but his stats could be. If I'm thinking in my head, what could possibly happen with Brock Purdy in an improved season? Like, I can see his yards going up. I can see his completion percentage going down. I can see him getting more touchdowns, but also more interceptions. Yeah. And he could be a better quarterback despite more interceptions and lower completion percentage. Stats are not really the true tell. If he just understands and masters this offense, they become a little bit more pass heavy. I feel like Brock Purdy could actually be better, even if his statistics say differently.
He was fifth in MVP voting. So, it's hard to duplicate on that when you're the number one seed and you win 13 games. Like, that carryover is difficult to duplicate year in, year out. Patrick Mahomes won MVP in his second season back in 2018. That following year, he didn't throw for 50 touchdowns like he did the year prior, but that experience helped him mature in some of those mature type of quarterback elements that you see in a quarterback's development.
Right, and he's a better quarterback today than he was in my opinion, right? He's just prepared for it. So, I think that's totally possible that Brock Purdy is better as a quarterback, and even if his statistics are not as good. Dave Barkley says, I personally think Mordecai is going to be good. No reason behind it. Besides, I just have a feeling, but he has potential more than Purdy, I think. Interesting, man. I don't have that feel. I got to see him play games, like actual games, before I say anything about Mordecai, but he does have very similar numbers and measurements. Corey Soda says, I'm skeptical of the after a full offseason questions. He already set a high standard. I'm looking for more consistency. And if he regresses, I'd admit I'm not sold. I'm always an Allen type. I see what
probably he likes his quarterbacks who have that physical makeup and testing.
Yeah, I think in general, everybody does, but it's not like, I think if you ask Kyle Shanahan behind closed doors, would he prefer to have Brock Purdy's arm strength improve and his size improve behind closed doors? Kyle Shanahan would probably say yes. But really, it's the mental makeup which makes quarterbacks good, and Brock Purdy's elite in that category. He really is.
Yeah. All right. It's the highlight phase of the era that we're living in, though, right? People see Josh Allen, 6'6", 240. He can run, pull away speed. He's hurdling over defenders. He's running over linebackers. He has an incredible arm in which he's able to uncork a 60-yard dime downfield right in stride. But what has Josh Allen done when it matters the most? Brock Purdy, in 2 years already, has a great playoff record, and I'd make the argument that you can have all the physical skills that you want, but do you have the timing, accuracy, anticipation, and processing skills? That's what made Tom Brady great. Tom Brady was slow at the NFL Combine. He didn't have zip behind his throws like a Josh Allen. But does he have the clutch gene? Yes, he did. Could he process? Yes, he did. Did he come through in big moments? Yes, he did. So sometimes those things are more important than the physical makeup and the testing skills. But in this highlight era of social media, and I got to admit, you see those throws and you're like, man, that's stupid. He's built in a lab. It doesn't always come down to that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always more, the mental things are always more important, but it would be great to find a combination of both, which I think is kind of sums up Patrick Mahomes, really.
Yeah.